In this video, we're going to be focusing on this little sentence right here. It would also introduce complexity, as players would need to be aware of the mechanics of their current gear as well as the options in their inventory. Personally, I feel this is an absolute slap in the face to players. Simple reason being, the idea is to learn. Like, you don't just pick up a game and become instantly good at it. You need to progress, you need to learn, you need to understand what you're doing. This is why they add things like Iron Horse Raid. It's why so many players prefer Iron Horse Raid to Dark Hours. Dark Hours is a tiny bit of mechanics and then just pure DPS check, whereas Iron Horse Raid is, there's quite a bit more mechanics. There's still obviously DPS checks, because it's a looter shooter. DPS checks is going to be like the way to go, but there's obviously a bit more in terms of mechanics. We have to learn these. It's also one of the reasons why typically when you do raid runs, more experienced teams will only take 2 first-time clears at once, simply because it is quite mechanical heavy. You need the experience there, you need the knowledge. So for me, this is an absolute slap in the face to players. However, at the same time, is it so much that they need to learn, or is it more the way in which a lot of the talents are worded is very, very poor? A perfect example of this is Flatline. We tested it during the PTS. It is still an amplifier, yet they are changing the wording it from being amplifies weapon damage by 15% to increases weapon damage by 15%. It's still an amplifier. So there was a lot of people running around going, oh, Flatline's been nerfed. It hasn't. Well, at least in the PTS 1, it wasn't nerfed. It was still an amp. So is this like a wording issue? Why would we need to learn learn all of these intricate mechanics? Apparently, they're not that intricate, but why would we need to learn all of these amazing new mechanics if the devs just didn't screw up their own wording? Perfect example of this is we just come into our lovely little sheet provided by Aziman. Here we have Sadist. Deals plus 20 or 25 weapon damage to bleeding enemies. It's not weapon damage though, it's an amplifier. Same with Eyeless. 20 weapon damage to blinded enemies. Again, it's an amplifier. Ignited deals 20% weapon damage to burning enemies. It's an amplifier. And if we come down to what range it is, amplifies weapon damage by 2% for every 5 minutes. It literally tells you it is an amp. As we currently have Flatline, amplifies weapon damage by 15%, 20 for perfect, to pulsed enemies. Again, it is an amplifier. Another good one, a perfect example, Sledgehammer. Dealing damage with the grenade applies a mark on target. Targets with marks will take 30 or 40 for perfect, more damage to armor. Okay, it's literally set in the thing as DTA, but it's not DTA. It is an amplifier that only applies to armor and armor plating, but it doesn't act as DTA. Again, like, this has been a huge area of contention for a lot of players because it's technically not DTA, but it applies an amplifier to armor and armor plating. So maybe we wouldn't have this problem of learning these amazing mechanics that you've put into the game if you could just, I don't know, word your shit correctly. If we come over to the actual talent changes, Thunderstrike, okay, it used to do 30% weapon damage. It's now being brought in line to Sadist, Ignited, and Eyeless, which I really like. But again, it deals 20% weapon damage to shocked enemies. After a certain amount of kills, you deal shock to... It's still an amplifier. Perfect Thunderstrike, same again. It's still an amplifier. Flatline, as I said before, amplifies weapon damage by 15%. They're changing it to deals 15% weapon damage. It's an amplifier. Why are you changing it? For the purpose of what we know and understand in the game, you are giving this the wrong description. And then you're going to say, oh, but people might not understand the mechanics of the game. Whose fault is that? Intimidate. it's an exponential amp. We make a slight change here because most amplifiers will just amp. The idea of an amplifier would be to be exponential, but we have to actually make that distinction simply because, unlike other amplifiers, Intimidate stacks against itself. So it's not, if you get 1% and then it stacks up and you get another 1%, you don't have 2%. You'll have 1% times 1%, which gives you 2.2. Not a huge difference, but once you start getting up quite a lot, you can see a huge difference. This is the same with Hunter's Fury. But they've changed it to total weapon damage. It isn't total weapon damage. It's an amplifier. The same as Heartbreaker. This is put as total weapon damage. It isn't total weapon damage. It again is an amplifier. Strikers, amplifier. There are so many of these in the game, and I don't feel like the devs actually understand. Now, this is one thing that the devs are 100% in control of, and it's apparently one thing that a lot of people have been bothering them with, of trying to like normalize their descriptions. Though from what I hear, they mostly just get ignored. It's very clear, because from what I also understand is the devs have gone radio silent now, even among their own like teams, their testers, the ETF. They've gone radio silent. It seems to be very clear that they are fully aware that this dev note, like the overall dev note that they released, they just shouldn't have posted. It would have been better to leave us all in suspense so that we can just think you're an idiot. But now that this is out, we know you're an idiot. And yeah, like I said, just wanting to focus on that magical little part of it would also introduce complexity, as players would need to be aware of the mechanics of their current gear as well as all other options in their inventory. This is a good thing. No matter how you want to look at it, players being aware of the mechanics of all of their gear, whether it's equipped or just hiding in their backpack, is a good thing. It means they understand the game. It means they have knowledge of the game. This is like the most stupid thing I've ever heard the devs say, or like, well, read what the devs have said. Like, this is actually mind-bogglingly numb. Anyway, that's basically all I wanted to go over on this, just because I wanted to just cry about something for the morning. I've not even had my morning coffee yet. But yeah, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.